welcome to Smiling Souls. Hey, Wendy.
Hey, Steph, welcome everybody. So, I am so excited to introduce our guest for today. And I'm just going to start out by reading her bio, and we'll get into this. So, Chequita McCullough is a transformational relationship coach who works with women leaders to rebuild healthy, loving relationships with their mothers. Ooh. Chiquita knows about the impact a less than ideal mother-daughter relationship has on your self-esteem, work life, and other relationships. Chiquita has supported many women to overcome the impacts of self-doubt, insecurity, and fear tied to their belief about themselves developed in their relationship with their mothers. Her work helps women become authentic and gain empowerment to build healthy mother-daughter relationships. Chiquita is a certified Energy Leadership Index Master Practitioner Coach. Ah, she is also certified in Core E, Dynamic Leadership, and Transitions Dynamics Specialist. Chiquita holds a master's degree in organizational leadership from Grace. My goodness, I can't talk today. From Grace Christian University and is certified through the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching, also known as IPEC. Outside of the passion of coaching and supporting women leaders, Chiquita loves discovering new adventures, traveling around the world, discovering new cultures and places. So it is my honor to welcome Chequita McCullough to Smiling Souls. Welcome.
Hello, Wendy and Stephanie. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I couldn't sleep. It was like first grade last night.
Oh my gosh,
That is awesome.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so we always like to start off our podcast with card pulls. And so Stephanie and I both practice pulling our cards and calling in our spiritual guides in the morning. And so Steph, you wanna go first and tell us what you pulled?
Sure. So I pulled Claire Cognance. It says it's Archangel Uriel, and it says pay attention to your thoughts, ideas that come to you as they are answered prayers. You've prayed for answers, and they've come to you in the form of repetitive thoughts telling you to take steps that make healthy changes. Don't discount your thoughts or think they're just dreams or common knowledge. Your thoughts are tuned into high frequencies right now and are trustworthy inspirations. All great inventions, new businesses, and teaching stems from the same universal source of wisdom. You're tapped into that divine wisdom right now, and it's important to notice and record your thoughts, then act upon these as answered prayers.
Wow. And when you pulled that, what was your aha?
uh well,
Yes.
we had been chatting with Chiquita and asking her if she does something like this. And while she was talking, I was pulling. And tell us what you do, my dear. What do you do in the
Hmm.
morning for your
Yeah.
practice?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am, deeply practiced Christian, and my meditation and prayer morning is very lengthy. And so this morning, in preparation for you guys, I spent the entire morning in meditation and prayer and silence, listening to what the inner voice is telling me and how I should show up for this call, and making sure I'm intentional about what I say so it resonates with the people who need to hear it. So that's
Right.
what I was doing.
So as she was saying those things, I pull out of the deck this card that says, listen to your thoughts and prayers as they are answered prayers. And so I just thought, like, bingo, that is right on point 100%. And then in reading the further explanation, it's, you know, just I think it's just so important to remember to listen to your thoughts, that they are important. It's not just, you
And
know,
they're guiding you in the direction you should go. And
correct.
oftentimes we ignore that. because we
Mm-hmm.
think we're better, right? So if we just listen to that internal voice, that intuition, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
it always guides you in the direction you're supposed to go.
Exactly. And lately, you and I, Wendy, particularly have been on a lot of paths of just creating new things and listening and going with what we're sensing, So seemed very appropriate.
Very, we're seeing so many signs and coincidences, and Steph and I are just so in sync, and it's divinely ordered, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, so I pull from Love and Light. And so this morning I asked my angels, spirit guides, ancestors, what do I need to see? What do I need to hear? And I pulled give peace a chance. And I'm like, what the heck? Because I'm a peaceful person. What are you talking about? And it says, I am leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart. And the peace I give is a gift the world cannot give. And that's John 14:27. So I was like, okay, I need to read this. So I looked in my little book and I went, oh, give peace a chance. If you're feeling stressed or stuck, it's a sign to take a break and pray for your inner peace to be restored. So I went, okay, God, I need my inner peace to be restored, because here's the interesting thing. Talk about following your intuition and signs. Had I not pulled this card, had I not asked for that guidance, I would not have realized how stressed I was, even though I thought I wasn't, right? Got a lot of things going on. They're all good things. They're all wonderful things, but still feeling that stress. So that's a great reminder, just to shake it off, recenter, be kind to myself, and show up authentically, as we do on this podcast, right? Steph and I don't show up to be like, oh, look at us, we're perfect and nothing ever goes wrong. Oh Lordy. It goes wrong and we laugh and we just kind of carry on.
Yep.
And we model that for you to do the same.
Hey, I am so excited. Aren't you excited?
Yes. I never thought this was going to happen, but here we are.
Here we are. Like 2 months into it, we have a sponsor.
We have a sponsor.
Yay! So we wanted to thank Lisa Condon, who was our first guest, for being our first official sponsor, and or one of them. And
Thank you, Lisa.
Yay! Lisa Condon Enterprises is the strategic thought partner you never knew you needed for your business and for your life. Building from your core values and a foundation of gratitude, LCE will help you define success and build the roadmap to your North Star.
And through this work, you will shed what you don't need and take critical steps to living and working in your life's purpose. Reach out for your discovery call with Lisa today. Email Lisa at lisacondon.com or visit her website, www.lisacondon.com. If you are ready to take critical steps and do your life's work, Lisa is the gal for you. Anyway, I want to talk to Chequita about a lot of things today. And one of the things I want to talk to her about is a phrase that you came up with this when we were having a conversation. And the phrase was mama drama.
Yeah, I didn't actually come up with that. I was working on some stuff
Okay.
in my office here in my domain where I call my creative zone. And I was
Yeah.
literally working on, the book hadn't been released yet. It was in editing, and I was editing and I was working on stuff.
Great.
And the Holy Spirit said, "You are the mama drama coach." And I was like, "What? That is not what I want to be called. I just want to be called a relationship transformational coach." So, and I went back to typing again, and mama drama came up. So I actually typed it up on a piece of paper, and it's on the board, and it says, "I am the mama drama trauma coach." And I said, let's embrace it and see what happens with that, because mama drama is the one thing that most people experience at some time in their life. I love the fact that lots of women have great relationships with their mother, and that's what we're all aspiring to get to, but a lot of us don't. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot that we have to unpack from that relationship. And so why just, why not lean into that mama drama? Because that I'm here to break it. I'm here to change it for people. And so yeah, that's how it went. So when I met you and we were talking, Wendy, I said, I'm the mama drama coach, and I started putting it out in the universe and saying I'm the mama drama coach. That's what I do.
That is what you do. And when you put it out into the universe, what did you notice came back?
It really resonated with people.
Yeah.
I was on a big coaching platform with a major coach and a well-known coach, and he was asking, what did we do? And we were all coaches, and he was asking, what did we do? And it was the day after I had gotten that note. And I was like, I'm just going to type in the chat, I'm the mama drama coach. And he literally stopped while he was reading the chat, and he said, Chequita, she said she's the mama drama coach. I love it. He goes, you've just taken away the weight of that relationship, and you've made it relatable to people, and it shows compassion that you have an understanding for it. And I was like dancing in my chair going, oh my God, he just said my name, and I'm on a call with thousands of people all around the world. That's what was going on in my head as he was talking. He goes, and he said, after he said all that, he said, go with that. So that was like day 2, the second day after the Holy Spirit said, Mama Drama Coach. So
talk about divine timing.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. And we talked about this before, about you have made it relatable through that conversation. We also talked about how women, when you're not interviewing them, but just asking them about their mothers and things, they like to hide it. They don't want to talk about things that aren't perfect in their relationship. And so you bringing this to the forefront and just saying, I'm a mama drama trauma coach, makes it more relatable. But what would you say to a woman that has mama drama trauma and she is keeping it tight? She's not talking about it. And it's like, she's like this, right? What would you say to that woman?
I would say to her, I completely understand because I lived that life for decades. And when you start to release that, I call it the line of security blanket, because you think you're protecting yourself,
Right.
you open yourself up for so much life. And yes, you've already lived through the hardest parts, right? You're an adult now. You've made it through. So that shows your resilience, that shows your courage, that shows all these wonderful attributes that in spite of that relationship, you have come out as a victor. And most people don't see it as a victor. They live back in victimhood because it happened to them. And I totally get that. That's understandable. But the reality is, and what I do is I get people into reality for today, not the what was yesterday. And so when I'm looking at those women and I'm like, let's take a journey. Let's walk you through my process so that you can start to get quick wins and feel the power that's already within. It just hasn't been activated because of fear and what might happen if you say this and all those old feelings and experience you have that continue to cloud what could happen for you today. And what I know to be true is it has nothing to do with your mom per se on how she's going to react. You're just operating from an old paradigm and an old way of being that you grew up with. And that was your safety mechanism. And that's how you protected yourself. And so when you can understand that you don't need to protect yourself at that level anymore because you have the courage, then you can engage and you can start to look at that relationship from a different perspective, right? Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. And, some of the mistakes are egregious. I will say that, and I acknowledge that. But where it has nothing, that relationship and how it was has nothing to do with how you can be today.
Oh my goodness. Activating your power. You are
Mm-hmm.
so wise.
No, I'm not wise. The Holy Spirit is wise.
Oh, and you're tapping into that power.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. And that guidance and that I'm getting chills. Just saying.
Yeah, so it's all about reclaiming that power,
Mm.
and really leaning into doing that. And I have a process that I created to help women, and getting into this was by default, right? I was
Yeah,
out there
yeah, share that.
coaching, I was coaching women, and women were always coming to me to help them navigate their career and get to the next level. Even though I wasn't a career coach, I had success in the corporate world for 30 plus years, and went up the ladder pretty quickly wherever I went into leadership roles. And so I developed this just this leadership acumen that people saw. How do you get where you get so fast? I want to know what you're doing. So when I started coaching people who didn't wanted to get to the next level, but didn't know how to get to the next level. And what I had discovered through coaching all these beautiful, amazing women is it was mostly tied to how they felt in their relationship with their mother. And what happened was a few years ago, I was coaching somebody in particular, and she asked specifically for me to coach her in her with her relationship to her mother, to get them to a place, or get her to a place where she didn't have to dread the interaction. She didn't have to feel unsafe when she was in that, in the vicinity of her, meaning, the word wars that go back and forth, and the snide comments, and the nasty looks, all those things. And I said, okay, I'll find a resource for you, because I'm good at finding resources and connecting people to other stuff. But she specifically asked for it to be Christian based. So I'm out there scouring Google, looking in Amazon and all the places, and there was not one single book to
Because
talk
you are
about
the resource.
to talk about how to navigate this relationship from a biblical perspective. And she made the comment and said, I think this is a book you're supposed to write. And I fell and hit the floor laughing. I was like, not me. This is not my journey. I have already dealt with my mother. We are in a good place now. And I don't need to be the voice that, writes a book about that. Fast forward 2 years later, and I started to write a book about that. And it was after, and I was literally, I signed on with a publisher, and I was literally choosing between writing a book about how Jesus changed my life. And I had this other one that had been sitting in the spirit in the background, mother, daughter, from that conversation. And I didn't have any notes on it. Like, I had full on notes and an outline ready to write the other book. And I got on a call with multiple other authors, or authors in this group. And they said, what are you going to write about? And I was the last one to say. And I was like, well, I want to write this book. And I was like, but this other one is here. And they were like, and I don't really want to write that. And I literally said, I don't really want to write that book. And they said, well, what's it about? And I said, it's about healing the mother-daughter relationship. And one of the people on the call went ballistic. She was like, you need to write this book. And here are many, many reasons. And she went down, boom, boom, boom. Reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, reason 4, reason 5. And I was stunned. It was like shell shock. Like somebody had slapped me in the face, right? And I this call in. I want to get off this call. So, and at the end, she was writing a book on connecting to your divine source. And her book is called Opening to Divine Intervention. And just getting people tapped into, really leaning into the Holy Spirit and following that. And so I got off that call and I cried for 15 minutes. And I literally said, okay, this is my assignment. This is what I'm supposed to do. And the rest is history.
The rest is indeed history. And oh my God, that's a powerful, powerful story. Like it took you by surprise. It was like a slap in the face. Took you some time to process that, go through the tears, and then you're like, okay. So tell us about your book.
My book is called Calling All Daughters, because we're all daughters, a biblical blueprint to restore your mother-daughter relationship. And I take you through using scripture, coaching principles, and therapy tools, and I walk you through a journey of healing, and based on the acronym of healing. And so as you go through the chapters, each chapter has scripture tied to it. It has the reason why God says this is important. this mother-daughter relationship is important. And then you get some exercises that you do at the end of each chapter that in the beginning, you get to build yourself up to get confidence and empowerment. And then right when you get that confidence, I have you do an assignment, a major assignment, where you write a love letter to your mother. And you write it twice. You write it once to say everything that you've always wanted to say it in the voice that you've always wanted to say it. And then you can do a prayer, burn ritual, whatever you want to do that. You can put it in your Bible. You can put it wherever, your treasure chest. Then you're going to write another one from the place of compassion and empathy and love of what you want your relationship to your mom to be and why this is important to you. Then you're going to take that letter and then you're going to go and start an engagement with your mother. And you're going to take her out on a date and you're going to go somewhere and you're going to sit her down and you're going to say to her, I've been on this healing journey because our relationship hasn't been the greatest and I want something different. And you're going to say to her, I've written this letter that I want to read to you. You're going to read it to her. You're going to sit in silence and you're going to let her process it. And you're going to let the motion and the wheels start to turn to shift that relationship going forward. Then in the second half of the book, you're going to start doing that healing journey together. And you're going to start looking at bringing her into the perspective of healing your entire family. And you're going to look at healing generations to come. And so that's what the book is about. So the healing journey starts with you, then you engage your mother, bring her into it, and then you work together to heal your entire family.
Wow. That is powerful. Where can someone get your book?
Amazon.
And we'll include that in the links with the YouTube thing.
Yeah.
Stuff's like, yeah. Wendy's talking about the YouTube thing. The YouTube channel. Lord. So Steph, what's coming up for you with what Chequita has shared so far?
Well, fun one, I think it's just very cool and interesting. I think it's very important for people to dive in and do that inner work. You know, it's sometimes it's not always just that they had a bad relationship with their mother or whatever. It's, you know, those deeper things that are kind of innate within us and how we respond to certain things. So I think that is intriguing. I'm also curious how many women, because thinking of like the work Wendy does of helping women who are dealing with their elderly parents, you know, that in and of itself can be quite a challenge. And I almost wonder, you know, how many of the women you work with or that you help are dealing with that stuff from when they were kids, and then, or perhaps it's maybe a little from those kids and it was like, oh, we evened out, and then now, oh, bugger. You know what I mean? Just curious.
Well, I like to say, here's what I know to be true. When I'm talking to women, including myself, because this was my life, we get to a place, right, in our adult life where we're trying to put the past behind us and truly leave it behind us. So I like to say we put all that emotion and all that experience in a box and we put it on the shelf and we're never going to open the lid to that box. However, you don't have to open the lid to that box because your life is the lid to that box. And the residual effects of that relationship show up in your relationships, they show up in your workplace. They're always constantly showing up. And 9 times out of 10, it's when you're not expecting it. And you're like, where did that come from? And that was, you know, my story. And in my story in general, like I told you earlier, I was a person that went into the corporate world and advanced fast and became a leader fast. And I just, I leaned into that. But what I didn't realize is my perspective was, I don't need people. Meaning when you're a leader, you're leading people. I don't need people. I'll just give them the directions and tell them what to do and they'll do it and it will be successful. that worked for a little while. But what happened in my career, early in my career, is, my leaders came to me and said, hey, you are great at getting our metrics done. You're great at getting our goals met. You're great at making the company money. But where you need to work is on your people skills. And I was like, well, what do you mean? My team loves me. And it was this false sense that I had created, right? And they were like, it was like, I'm here. And my motto was, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to collect my paycheck, right?
Yep.
But when you're a leader, you're leading people, you're leading emotions, you're leading, individuals that are building themselves up to become who they want to be. And when you're not in touch with that from a connection purpose,
Yep.
then you don't understand how to be a leader. And at that time, because my defense mechanism was keeping people at a distance because I was hurt by my mother, how can you be a leader connecting to people when you're keeping yourself at a distance and you're only showing what you want them to see, which is not even half of who you really are. And so that's why I say it comes out in ways that you don't realize until somebody brings it to your attention. So I was lucky in the fact that my company really did respect me and honor me, and they hired me a coach who helped me see how disengaged I was actually with people, even though I felt like I was engaged with people. And so that's why it's so important for me when I have this conversation that I say to people, you don't realize how it's showing up. It's impacting you in ways that you never thought about. And that's the result of it being hidden in that box and putting that lid on it and thinking that you've handled it, and it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't get handled until you actually take some time and dig into it and try and heal it and make it better.
Right. And that's where the work of your coaching comes in.
Absolutely. And I love doing it. It was like when I'm in that mode, talking to women, helping them become their best and most and tapping into their highest potential. That's the sweet spot. That's the spot I love the most.
Right. I'm curious about something that's coming up for me. So when you said take your mom on a date, I went, ugh. So
yeah, I get it.
What would you say if I were your client and I want to heal the relationship between me and my mom, right? And you give me this assignment and I go, oh, what would you say?
I would say, let's take a step back. Tell me about that. What is behind that? Because I've been there, right? And I know it's like, and it's usually, okay, that's not going to go well. That's going to be a disaster. That's going to just hurt me more than it's going to do any good. All those kind of statements, right? And it's like, it doesn't have to be elaborate. You guys can go to a park and sit on a park bench in nature, where there are other people around, so that you have like, a perimeter distraction.
Witnesses.
Yes, or that. It can be what you want it to be, but it has to be something where there's an opportunity for you guys to connect to each other in this space and try to start and work to reboot that relationship and that connection and that communication. Because a lot of the things that one of the biggest drivers of a mother-daughter relationship, and why it's not a great relationship, is communication, right? One's not able to hear what the other one's saying. There are earplugs in the ears. One has a perspective that it's my way or the highway. So many things. I could go on for the list forever.
Yeah, right.
It's trying to break down those barriers, because at the end of the day, we all want to be heard. We all have a voice, and we want that. We want to be able to connect. And one of the things, Wendy, I love what you're doing with the sandwich generation, right? Is there, you've got to reach forward and you've got to reach back. So the mother is the back and the children are the forward. But you're literally in the middle of all that. So it's looking at it, how do you want your children to treat you when you get to that age? How do you want them to treat their children when they start having children? And how do you want your relationship with your mother at some point in the future when she, is preparing to go to, pass on? How do you want how do you want to feel when she leaves this earth, that you did everything that you could possibly do to help mend that relationship? It's not on you 100%, but
Right.
do you want to have regrets? Do you want to sit there after she's gone and wish you had said this, that, or the other? Or do you want to take a shot and get to a place where when she passes on, you can go and love her in those moments and not have any regrets? And that's really what was the underlying driver for me to fix my relationship with my mother, because I didn't want to have that regret, because I'd seen too many people who didn't have a great relationship and their mother passed away, and it's still tearing them up to this day, or it's torn them up. And I just didn't want to feel like that. And so that drove me to figure out, how do I fix this? How do I get to a place where my mother and I can get to a place? And I have to come to accept the fact that she may never change, but I can change. I can change how I interact with her. I'm in control of how I respond and react to what she says. I am the controller of my universe. So what can I do to get to a place that I can say goodbye, kiss her goodbye, love her, and respect the fact that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her?
Well, and I think that it's interesting too, the concept of um it's not just about you. It's about that future generation. It's about those, like I did a book reading club thing, that we were reading this book that was all about like healing the woman, but like that all these things, like we are literally connected to our grandmother, because like when our grandmother is pregnant with our mother, we are in our mother because of the eggs, so all of that connection. And so if you think about it, if you're stepping into embracing this work, it's not just that you're healing that relationship of the past. You're fixing it for the, hopefully for the future. And like you were saying, modeling that behavior. Like when you said take your mother out on a date, like Wendy's like, oh, and I'm like, oh, because like my son's always like, hey mama, can we go on a date?
Oh,
No, it's different because but like that's one of those little things that I like to do with him, is just like try to help him be a good little gentleman, and have that good relationship and stuff. So, whether it's your daughter or your son, but um it's super important, because like you were saying, it is teaching your kids how to treat you, and modeling that behavior based on how you're attempting to treat your mother, because if you're giving attitude and causing drama, then what do you think's going to happen for you, right?
Exactly. And it's
Mhm.
interesting because the book has only been out for a month, and I live in Virginia, and I'm from California. So my son and my granddaughter and I took a trip back to California right after school got out. So I was like, this is the last time I'm going to be a non-published author. Let me go see the whole family. So I went out there, and I say this to just say the relationship can be healed. It's never going to be perfect. So if you're looking for perfection in this relationship, it's not going to happen. I'm going to be totally
No such
transparent
thing as
about that.
perfection.
So within 24 hours, my mother triggered something and it was innocent to a degree, but because of the residual of our relationship, it sparked a reaction out of me that everybody saw.
Mhm.
And um, and it was a simple thing from an outsider's perspective, but it was a long historical thing between my mother and I. And my inner self said, I'm tired of this. I'm not going to do it anymore. And I just blew my top in an instant. And everybody was like, oh, here it is again. And I didn't look at it that way. I was like, okay, I could have responded differently. And I took a couple of days to let the dust settle. And there was a moment where everyone was gone out of the house except for me and my mother. So I went into her room. I went into her space where she feels the most comfortable. And I sat down and I said, look, Mom, I apologize for my outburst. And I said, but here's what you need to understand. In our dynamic, since I was a teenager, I never felt safe. And whenever you demand something from me, and what she had asked for, and this is how critical I want everybody to understand this, we were coming back from my granddaughter's softball practice. We were practicing softball, and we literally were marching in her house like ants. My sister, my sister, my son, my dad, my granddaughter. And I was probably third in line. And out of everybody that passed my mother, she was standing in the doorway. Everybody passed her. She said nothing. But then when I passed her, she said, "Give me a hug." And it was like, okay, I got to stop what I'm doing. I'm sweaty and give you a hug right now. And I was like, I'm hot. It was 103 degrees outside. I'm hot. I'm sweaty. I'll give you a hug, but not now. And I was just like, and it was always when I was a teenager, when she wanted me to do something, I had to drop everything I was doing and do what she said in that moment, or else there was hell to be paid. And so that moment, even though it was an innocent, give me a hug, she didn't ask anybody else for a hug. So why are you singling me out of all these people? Now, if she started with the first person and gave them a hug as they walked past her, then it would have been no big deal. But it was the tone that she said it and the way that she said it. It took me back to when I was 16. And so when I went in to talk to her about it, I said, look, I have always felt like I have a target on my back when I'm around you. Like you could say something and it's not intended that way, but that's the way it comes across. And I said, you need to understand where that came from, because I don't think she ever understood where it came from. And I said, I'm not blaming you. I'm just letting you know that when you do that, this is how I feel. Now, if you wanted a hug, there's a different way to approach me for a hug. And I said, I don't generally care and like for people to demand things from me as a whole based on our relationship. I'm happy with what you're looking for, but you have to ask me in a different way. And so that was the end of the conversation. We talked, we hugged, we cried, and it just shows that dynamic will always come up. Something will essentially scratch the surface and send you right back to where you were. But the beauty of it is when you heal it, you can talk about it together and come out of it with understanding on both sides.
Wow. Yeah, I can, as soon as you were talking about what happened, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see how that would trigger you into 16 years. That's when she said I need to do something, and that came back. I want to go back to what Stephanie said a little while ago, and also Chequita, what you're doing, how you mentioned the sandwich generation, right? You're reaching back, but you're also reaching forward. So for the future, and I want to talk about how you are setting up almost a legacy, almost resetting your family's dynamic and the families that read your book that work with you. So can you share that perspective?
Yeah, that's what I love about
it. Yeah.
For some reason last week I drug up this family. I was figuring out how many girls are in our family right now. And there are 5 girls in our family from the age of 5 to 12. 5. Yeah. And they now get the opportunity, because of the work I'm doing and how it's impacted our family, to have a completely different belief in themselves in those most formative years, and believe that they can do and be in all the things that they want to do, right? And then you think about it, at some point in the future, they're going to have children. So their experience is going to be based on, their children's experience is going to be based on the experience that they had as children that was empowering and confident and magnanimous, where their mother's experience was the complete opposite of that. And so they are working to make sure that their daughters don't have that experience based on the work that I've done in this area. So 5 girls for now, and who knows how many more will be in the future, that get to come out to be these empowered, bright, young women, choosing their life and their path from an empowered place versus a place of fear, doubt, uncertainty. And the beauty of it is I get to live right in the middle of it and help them overcome that fear, doubt, and uncertainty early on, and help them see that, no, this is who you are. You can do what you believe. You can be who you want to believe. And, being with my granddaughter, who's about to turn 12, it's, that's almost a daily thing. And she's already said, I'm going to be a lawyer and someday I'm going to be a judge and I'm going to do this. I'm going to help children who are in the world of divorce. I'm going to help them transition that. And so I was
Great.
like, go for it. Let's do
So
it.
shall it be.
So I'm, helping her understand those dynamics. And I'm like, able to talk to her when somebody makes her feel less than, why they might do that, and how do you change that narrative, and what do you believe about yourself, and lean into that versus what somebody's trying to tell you are.
Wow.
Yeah,
And just imagine your granddaughter when she grows up and has children of her own.
exactly.
She will be modeling exactly what you taught her to them, and so on and so on. So I can see how you are changing the legacy, not only in your family, but in those that are in your world, that read your book, that work with you.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wrote in the book as I was doing research on mothers and daughters, right? I was like, biblically, who's in there that was a dynamic mother and daughter? There's lots of mothers, there's lots of daughters, but there was Moses's mother and sister who changed the trajectory of his life by saving him from Pharaoh's plight of being, killed as a newborn infant, by
Right.
sending him into the Nile and setting him up to be, rescued by Pharaoh's daughter, and then raised and educated, and then he comes back and saves the nation of Israel. And so it shows the power that when a mother and daughter can work together, their entire generation changes and generations to come. And that's what drives me, is because I don't think people really understand the power that a mother and daughter has when they can work together. Especially when you've not had that relationship that has been a positive relationship. There is so much power in those two people that women are the givers of life. Life is always going to flow through a woman. Doesn't matter what scientists do, the reality is this is how it's going to be. This is how it's always been. So why not make that dynamic duo, I like to call them, make them as powerful as can be? Because it's important for humanity. It's important for the individual families. And like I said, the book takes you back to look at, and when you bring your mother in, then you're looking at the generational stuff. You're looking at how was grandmother and the grandmother before that. And part of the journey of writing this book, I got more insight about my grandmother, my mother's mother. And it was like a light bulb for me, because I operated so much of my life living in fear and not believing that I could be and do all the things that I really felt in my heart I could do. And what I learned about my grandmother is she literally led life and lived in fear, so much so where she wouldn't even go outside. She stayed in her house to
Oh,
protect
wow.
herself. And there were a lot of circumstances as a result of that. When she was married to my grandfather, he was very abusive. So my mother and her siblings and my grandmother grew up were in a very, very abusive household. And so, yes, that fear is real. But that fear from her, my grandmother, developed long before she ever married him. And it may be part of the reason why she married him. She didn't know anything different. So as my mother and I were talking about my grandmother, my mother said she had aunts that she never met, because there was a family fight between the sisters and they didn't speak, and they never healed, they never reconciled those relationships. And so there's two aunts my mother never knew as a result of that. And so those are the driving things. I want families together. The family was important to God. It was important that we have a connection and a base. How do we get people there so that they are this next generation, which the younger generations behind me seem so much more loving, and they're, all the way that they interact with each other is already in community. So let's get that family community and that family unit where their external chosen friend and family that become their family is equal on the same plane.
I'm curious how many people you work with where have you noticed a pattern of order of birth? Like, is it a lot of times a firstborn, or is it a middle, or have you noticed anything like that?
I haven't paid any attention to that. I'm a firstborn, right?
Yeah.
My sister, who's 18 months younger than me, is a middle child, and I have a younger brother. My relationship with my mother was completely different than my mother's relationship with my sister. How she processed things is different than how I process things. So that's something that I haven't looked at, Stephanie, but now that you brought it up, I'm gonna start looking at that.
I'm just curious because that's one of those things. Like, I'm a baby, so my sister's first off 10 years older than me, and so we literally had completely different parents. But and my brother is 7 years older than me, so um I think birthplace plays a role in uh our take on the world, our reaction to the world, the way that are we an observer? Are we a go-getter? Are we, the different things? Like, I think there's our innate nature, and then there's the things that we learn from the cradle of, how do we interact in this place, So, yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yeah, that's
Maybe book
interesting.
number two.
My sister, who I said is 18 months younger than I was, she was the baby in the family for 15 years. And then my parents had my brother, which then made her the middle child and made him the baby.
And I bet
And
she wasn't too thrilled about that boy coming along.
she still embraces that whole baby girl syndrome that she has. She still embraces that to
Yep.
this day. She's
Mm.
not relinquishing that she was the original baby in the family.
I'm the baby girl.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
funny.
Yeah, maybe book number two, Chiquita, could be about birth order, right? How that plays a role. You never know.
Never know. There's another book swirling right now that mothers and sons.
I was
So
gonna ask about sons. Oh my goodness.
yes, so that's an interesting dynamic, and that one I'm excited to start working on. I'm the mother of a son. I did not have a daughter. I did not want a daughter. In fact, I didn't want children at all based on my relationship that I had with my mother. I wanted to just go through life with no children. Well, that apparently wasn't my plan. It was not my plan. So I have a son who is the father of a daughter. So that's how I get to have my do-over with the daughter is through my granddaughter.
Right.
And what I am just fascinated by his journey because I mothered him through all of my brokenness as an unsure, fearful daughter that was doing the best that she could, trying to, navigate this world and build a life for him where he didn't feel any negativity. He didn't experience anything that would impact him as a child or into his adulthood. And his view of me as his mother shatters my understanding because he sees me completely different as his hero, as his he's my biggest cheerleader, and I was like, how's that possible? And it started baffling my mind how it could be that he would have this view, being that I was this daughter from this broken relationship with a mother, or it's not broken, it was catabolic. We were always arguing, even into adulthood. And he looks at his childhood as the most wonderful thing he's ever experienced. And it just fascinates me. So I was like, what other mother-son relationships are out there? And as I started to talk about this book, the guys were like, are you going to write a book for us that have mothers that haven't had great relationships? And so the mother is at the core of life, like I said earlier, right? And how she impacts male, female, everyone. It's important to understand how powerful they are. We are as mothers, and I don't think we understand the power of a mother and how we could transcend that experience, much greater and much better to make the world a better place and individuals better. We're only doing the best that we can, and a lot of times we have role models that aren't great role models, right? And so, when one of the things I write about in the book is even if your role model in front of you hasn't been an ideal role model, there are many people out there that you can look to in your own communities that have great relationships. And I think that's what made it possible for me to know that I could fix this, because I was looking at those, those role models and those women that were really stepping up and being there for their daughters. And I was in the vicinity of those women, and women in, the workplace that were nurturing and, telling me where I needed to grow and develop. And so they're out there. So I just say, find them, lean into them until you get to a place where you are stronger and more, wiser and knowledgeable about where you can take your relationship with your mother. And sometimes, and it was interesting, recently I was on the phone with somebody and we were talking about the mothers, especially the older generation. And you have to understand where they came from and what their life might have looked like in those times, right? And were growing up in a time where women were suppressed and they weren't given opportunities that the women have today. And all those things have to be taken into account. And they were marginalized and minimized for many decades. And all of that plays a part in how they developed into women and how they became who they are based on whoever they were looking at the time. And so there's so many dynamics about how women are developed and formed, that not only from our childhood but as adults as well, that impact how we show up. And a lot of the older generation may be feeling it may be too much for them to reconcile what they could have done better. And so we have to show them some grace in that area. We're not holding them to what they did. They did the best that they could. Let's look at it from a place of how can they, with their send off, go off with a better send off than what they've experienced on this planet, right?
That's beautiful. Well, Chequita McCullough, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And you are truly changing the world and changing relationships for women and their mothers. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll see you next time on Smiling Souls.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
ladies, for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Of course, our pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you.